enchantment type part, the angry, rebellious part, the all shades of me. That's what I get to write now.
Yeah, that poetry makes room for all versions of the self and kind of legitimizes all versions of the self. Yeah. That everything's welcome here.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry.
No, not at all. I'm wondering if there's any instances of when you shared a poem that felt particularly noteworthy to you or maybe helpful to the audience or the person. Do you recall any instances of sharing a poem that were meaningful to you or to the reader, receiver?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago I actually put on a show.
Oh, wow.
So what happened was I went to a literary festival to try. I'd written some short stories, and I thought, well, I'll just get an agent. I'll just get an agent who will publish things. And of course, that didn't work out. I was horribly wrong. Trying to do fiction, you don't know anything about it. So I wrote a poem on the train back called Bitterness, which is just about everyone else gets to be published, but not me. And out of that, I thought about how we always hear about people once they've been successful and not whilst people are in the struggle.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'll put on this show of all of my poems about our human tricky things. I called it Light and Life Shadows. And it was about finding the light in the trickiness of being human.
Oh, I love that.
So all of those, there was a collection of 30 poems. So 30 of those, thank you, 30 of those were used. But I've got 3 poems actually where other people have told me that it's been incredibly helpful. So I wrote one called I Want to Howl My Heart Today, which was about my friend. My friend, when I was 20, we were living in Spain together, and she killed herself. And I wrote a poem straight afterwards called Is That How You Feel? Oh, really? And that was just for me. And then about 20 years later, on the anniversary of her death, it just hit me again, the grief of not being able to save her. I was the last person to be with her and not being able to do anything. So I wrote this poem called I Want to Howl My Heart Today. I want to howl my couch away. And it's this conversation with her, and how I want, it just ends with, I want us to be talking now of that near miss when you worked out how your life was worth holding on to still, not cut short by some deadly pill. And I shared that on Suicide Awareness Day a couple of times in the last couple of years, and have just received notes from people saying that's been so helpful, and it's helped people to have conversations that they didn't have. So was that. There's another one that I wrote called Labels, which is and this was on behalf of, I had different clients coming in, and one was saying, I've been diagnosed with ADHD, another was, I've got oppositional defiance disorder, I'm a compulsive liar. And yet when you heard their backstories, there was always really good reason for their behaviours. And I got so frustrated with all these flipping labels. So I wrote this poem, Labels, and there's a line in it that goes, I'm not a wash at 30 or fat content 3%. No, labels are for objects, not breathing sentience. I'm a human whose emotional life has gone slightly out of whack. Help me see my strengths and virtues so I can find my own way back to the me I know that's in there when I peel away the pain. I'm due my humanness, like you. Underneath we're all the same. And there's a group in the UK called Drop the Disorder, which is about challenging the medicalisation of mental health. There's loads of poets in that group, and they hold poetry evenings. So I shared that, and that went into their book. They have a book called The Changemakers. So that went into their book. And again, people just going, I'm more than this disorder label. And then the third one is called Homeless Bum, which I wrote actually after being in Austin.
Wow,
in Texas.
I've been there,
and in the park there, they have this tree that's a memorial to all of the people who have died on the streets. And each time I see a client, I do a timeline with them, often, of their trauma. And I wanted to do this. I thought, wouldn't it be amazing to go to all of the different homeless people and say, give me your timeline, and to be able to show that to people. And imagine having this video of all of these homeless people standing there with their timelines, and you can see, like, intergenerational stuff, how early on things have happened to them that were out of their control, that had led to them being homeless. And it's called Homeless Bum. It's like, go on, you're right, walk on, I'm just a homeless bum. But it goes on about, the muffled screams that are underneath, that don't get voiced, that don't get witnessed. And there's a group in the UK, which is the New System Alliance, and they're re-looking at the way that we look at homelessness, because it's such a complex situation. So when they opened up their conference, they asked me to perform that poem. So I did that.
Wow.
So actually, that's really nice to recount that. Yeah. I sit here at my desk thinking, like, why am I doing this?
No.
Yeah. And actually, just recounting those, like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's helpful.
No, it sounds incredibly profound. And as you're talking, one thing I'm thinking is, this isn't totally formulated yet, but I'm going to try to express it because it feels important. As psychologists or therapists, we do a lot of work maybe one-on-one or in groups, and it is, like, to me, it feels like a very particular position in that you're honored kind of with so many people's stories and that people trust you with, and it's one thing if that stays, like, in those little rooms. And of course, from a confidentiality perspective, yes, it's going to stay in those rooms, but you also kind of maybe gain this broader understanding of, like, the human condition, right, in a really deep way. And so as you're talking about these poems you've shared, it strikes me as really consistent with maybe the sense of mission that brings a lot of people to this work, but a totally different way of engaging with it, right, where you maybe take this individual work and yet you're able to offer it somehow to a broader audience, like these insights or these, What are you?
I think poetry and therapy, they're such happy bedfellows, and I think there can be a sense of, and this might be me, but I think there can be a sense of superiority in the therapy realm, or psychology. We understand, and we, the pseudoscience mentality that goes around psychology.
Yeah.
And yet, poets have been expressing therapeutic thought and wisdom for centuries.
Ages, yeah.
And they can often say things, there's that saying, isn't there, in therapy, it's about making the connection between the head and the heart, it's 18 inches, and making that connection. And I think often, the psychology route can come from the head down, and the poetry route kind of comes from the heart up. Yes. And being able to combine those two things together is what therapy really is all about, which is about being seen. And sometimes I can't express what's going on for me, but if you share a poem with me that helps me to feel seen in that, then that's therapeutic.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. Wow. Poetry as a form of being seen, and this connection between the head and the heart. Yeah, that really, really resonates. Have any of your clients ever shared any of their creative work with you?
It's been a bit of a bumpy road as to how do I as a therapist share this stuff. I've had times where I've had a client share something and I've got just the poem in mind. I'm really not interested, and so I have to be really careful because then that's about me. That's and I don't actually think that unless I was doing proper sort of poetry therapy, which wasn't something I was doing there, in one-to-one, then I don't think that that's helpful. I have had people, so I've been on a few podcasts, and I have had people write to me after being on podcasts, and there's a a friend of mine, her